Hey there, Amy. It's Coach Dan checking in. Thanks again for coming out to go running with me today. I've got a couple videos for us to look at and wanted to compare what you were doing today. This is Miranda Carfrae from Kona, and just a couple of neat shots of her. First thing I'm going to do, it's kind of blurry. I got it off of YouTube, and the quality's not that great, but we really don't need great quality for me to point out some of the different things about her form. If you check it out in real time, I did a stride count. She's doing about 90 strides per minute there, and that's right about where you are. So that's pretty neat to know. The next thing, if you look at her run form in real time, you notice that she bobs up and down a fair amount. She's got a fair amount of vertical movement there. That's worth mentioning. If you slow it down, that's when things start to get pretty neat. At least for me anyway, I enjoy looking at that. So something you'll notice about her form, the biggest thing is her foot lands practically right under her body. And we're going to watch that right foot. I'm going to back it up one more time and show you a couple of things. So I'm going to freeze it right. This is the frame just before the foot impacts the ground, and that's right when her foot hits this frame. So we're going to draw a couple of angles on her, and I want you to try to remember these. And we're going to go from the greater trochanter right up through the center of her ear, and then right down through the center of her ankle. And it's about 157 degrees. So try to remember that one. That really doesn't express forward lean, but that's what that basically tells you is that's a function of both her forward lean and her foot plant. So write that down if you need to. Miranda Carfrae's 157 forward lean and foot plant. The next angle I want you to check out is this is basically just her forward lean. We're going to try to find that greater trochanter again. And I'm using vertical as a reference from this telephone pole that's off here to my right side. And then I'm going to go through her ear right about there. I'm going to try that one more time. So the tricky part, because of the blurriness of these videos, is actually finding straight up and down. But I've tried to do this a couple of times so I could get a pretty good shot at it before I started shooting this video. But it was around 7 degrees. I'm going to try it again further down the line and see if it changes much. And most of her video stays directly from the side. Yours kind of doesn't because you went by me as I was standing still. So let's try that. From here again, we'll do the greater trochanter up through the telephone pole and through her ear. It's between about 7 and 8 degrees. Tried it a couple other times and I got a bit more of a forward lean than that. So let's call it 8 degrees forward lean. Now I'm going to take your shot over here, and your video resolution is quite a bit better, and I've already started drawing some lines on you here, so I'm going to try to get rid of those for just a minute. And if you look at Miranda's video directly next to yours, you'd be surprised how the angles are pretty close one to another. There's not a huge difference really. So you'd be pretty surprised. If you check a couple, and we will, your forward lean, even without looking at the angles, you can see that you're just a little more upright from the center of your hip really up through your ear. You've just got a little more of a lean back. But the most profound thing, I think, is where your foot plant is relative to your center of gravity. So we're really landing way out here in front of the body, and well in front of the center of gravity. So what I'd like to try to do is draw a line basically through your ear and then through your hip, and just to give you a rough idea of the space difference between the two athletes. So we'll do the same thing with Miranda, and we'll try to find the center of her hip there. And you can see it's tough to see. This is probably about close to a foot, I would say, from the back of your heel to this yellow line, and it's quite a bit different. Check out Miranda's video. There's not much space there. If that's 6 inches, that would be a lot. So you can see that your foot plant is landing quite far out in front of your body. So again, I think that's a function of two things. The angle that you have, you're leaning back quite a bit, and the second thing is kind of that overstriding notion that we're doing, the low cadence. I didn't on the other videos that I checked out, the cadence wasn't terribly different than this one, so this had the best resolution. This is the one that I used. But that's something, if you just look again at the two athletes side by side, that's one of the things that you can tell at first glance. So how do we kind of fix that? Well, that's really the biggest thing that we're working on. And I think a forward lean more from the hip, having you go forward a bit, even bending from this waist just a little bit, and just trying to increase that stride like we talked about, I think is going to help. At least that's a good place to start. Let's see, I want to get this guy up here, and I want to draw that angle relative to vertical on you. And there we go. We're going to zoom into that and see what we came up with. So that's about 6 degrees forward lean. And remember, Miranda's was about 8 degrees. So it may not sound like a lot, but if you're talking about, it isn't a whole lot. It's only a couple of degrees, but really what that does is help keep that turnover short and keep that stride in shorter. So let's see. The next thing I wanted to do is just draw a few more angles, and these are the ones that are kind of surprising. If we go again through that greater trochanter through the ear, and then basically through the center of your ankle, that's very small. That's very difficult for you to see, but that's about 154 degrees. So if we were landing back in here a bit, that would be closer to what Miranda's doing, about 157. So you can see as I'm moving this yellow line what a difference that might make. And again, these angles aren't easy for you to see, but I can see them on my screen. We're going to do one more. I'm going to try to make that just a little bit bigger. So again, through the ear and through the center of the knee. About 141 degrees there. And then we're going to do the same thing on Miranda. So about 147 degrees. So you can see you've got a much more closed up angle there, and that's basically your hip angle. And you're closed up there, again, because we're kind of overstriding, trying to get that foot way out in front of the body. So I think what we're going to try to do, we don't want to do anything huge all at once, but I'd like to just make small steps. And I think that metronome that I gave you is going to be the biggest assistance in this. When you start to get tired, your form slips, that's when that cadence, basically you start to revert to old habits, just like with swimming. So we'll use that, and if you can, at least check it at the first part of your run, the middle, and the end of your run to see where your cadence is falling. And we'd like to get you up around 90, just like Miranda at all times. I've noticed that you tend to overstride a bit more when we're doing our slower paces, and then as you speed up, it's not quite so bad. But I want to play your video now in real time and show you one other thing that I noticed with your form. Hopefully you can see this well. You can actually see that you've got decent form, actually very good form, aside from that overstriding. That many of the angles that you have with your body are very similar to what Miranda has. Okay, there's one other thing I wanted to show you as you're coming back through here, and this time I'm going to slow it down a bit. And again, this is fairly small. Hopefully you've got enough resolution that you can see. Watch the lateral movement that you've got in your upper body as you're running. So it's almost like there's a bit of side to side movement, and I kind of feel like that's wasted energy. It's more pronounced if we speed it up just a little bit. But you can see there's a lot of upper body movement, almost like a twisting back and forth. And I'm going to pause that. If you watch Miranda's video, and we'll put that back on real time, we don't have that side shot. But look at how basically all of her energy is focused on moving her forward. There's really no twisting at the spine. Just very little back and forth movement. She's not swaying. She does rotate about the center of her axis, but she's not kind of swaying back and forth. So I feel some of your energy is actually being directed to the side, and some of the body movement that you're doing is kind of having to control that. So that just might be something to think about, keeping your arms, just like in swimming, we don't want to have the arms cross the center line of the body. And if we can keep from doing that while we're running, I think that will help that. So we're going to draw a center line down you right here. You know, imagine you don't want your arms to come across the center line of your body. In fact, if they would not even swing from side to side at all, I think that would be an improvement. If the arms just drive you back and forth, I think it'll kind of stop that twisting motion. So what we'll do, we'll work on things one step at a time. I think the most improvement that we could hope for is to increase that cadence and get it up around 90 at all times. I think that's going to cure that foot plant issue and draw it in closer to the body. It'll open up that hip angle. So here we go. And you can see this is just before foot impact, but check out, this is really a classic overstride, and we're really going to come down on that heel. And what's happening when you land with the foot that far in front of the body, it's almost like you're hitting the brakes. You're having to use a lot of muscular force to draw yourself over that center of gravity. It's almost like you're fighting against your body. So there we go. The frame before, you can see we're definitely going to heel strike. And that's okay. If that's the way that you've run, I think over time, if we can get you to increase your cadence, that will evolve too. I think that's not necessarily a bad thing that we're heel striking, but just that our stride is landing so far out in front of our body and the hip is closed up a bit. So there we go. But the rest of this, the way we hold our arms, and really if we can forward lean just a little bit more, I want to show you her lean angle one more time. If we do a side-by-side comparison, sometimes that really sends it home. So it's not terribly pronounced. Remember, it's only a couple of degrees, but sometimes that can change that whole fore-aft balance and how comfortable you are. But a lot of your forward motion, I think the efficiency of that forward motion can be improved just with a little bit of forward lean. It'll draw that cadence in, or draw that stride in just a little bit. So it's worth a shot. That's at least what I'm thinking. We'll go after that cadence first off and try to keep from overstriding quite so much, and maybe just stop some of that twisting in the upper body. Just very small improvements over time, but those are the three things that I would want to work on. So there you have it, Amy, and thanks for coming out again today. I'm just going to roll this one more time so you can see it. All right, there you have it. So 2 miles at 7:45. That's what I wanted to hear, and we'll do more of the same. All right, Amy, talk to you soon.